it's a ball that you kick with your foot. It's quite simple to
They drive on the wrong side of the road, and they call it the wrong sport as well. So, and we have to pander to the Americans.
Welcome back to Maturing Cheddar, episode 12, bringing you a variety of cross-Atlantic viewpoints from the UK and the US about this weird and wonderful world that we live in. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at Maturing Cheddar. As usual, we appreciate all feedback, so please leave comments where possible. So today, we just want to dive into a bit of the UK versus US sports culture. All four of us here, Hemel, Todd Lewis, and myself, Ryan, all big sports fans. So we thought we would talk some more about our passion. So kind of one big thing that I always get asked in America about soccer. So let's clear it up first. When I say soccer, I'm talking about English football. And because if we don't clearly distinguish between soccer and football, our American listeners are going to get confused about what we're talking about.
That's so annoying. It's so annoying for the folks that are sat here.
Yeah, for like the full world, because it's a ball that you kick with your foot. It's quite simple to
They drive on the wrong side of the road, and they call it the wrong sport as well. So, and we have to pander to the Americans. I think they do way too much for our world in terms of influence and. I'm going off topic already. Said I was going to be quiet in this one.
Basically, it's football.
Yeah, it's football. But I mean, after living in the US for 4 years, I'm pretty used to calling it soccer now. I never really called it football in conversation.
You might not be allowed back to the UK.
You guys live in Europe, and we're going to leave you two out in the States.
All right, I'm gonna call it rounders then. Whenever we talk about what's it called, rounders.
Baseball. They have no idea what rounders is. We got so much to talk about. What can we start with today? I've got a good point here. So I'm always getting asked about these soccer hooligans by Americans. I think they love that kind of mentality in soccer. I mean, I don't see any soccer hooligans here, but they always ask me, "Do you know any? Or are you part of these gangs that go around?" Because I think they watch too much Green Street. And for people who haven't seen Green Street, it's that film I think it's about some Millwall...
West Ham.
They support West Ham soccer club, and they just beat people up before the game and after the game.
Got Elijah Wood?
Yeah. The Hobbit. The guy who plays the Hobbit.
It's an interesting one, hooliganism, because it was massive, for a long time in England through, I think, like the 80s, or maybe 70s and 80s, maybe a bit in the 90s. It's really, really big, and in some clubs still it's a prominent part of the club, like having a firm and having people who sort of still live that lifestyle of treating it like a tribe. My football club is my religion and my tribe, and dare anyone speak against it or act against it. And you see stuff on the news about it, and it's being, criminalized and heavily prosecuted, any type of activity. So it's something which, I don't think could transfer too well to America, given they're quite often more strict on a lot of issues and crimes. And it's something I wanted to ask back in like terms to, because football for me, like my whole life, football very much is like us against you. You have your own segregated seating. You hate the away fans, you give them abuse, and it's very much an us and them situation. Whereas rugby, for example, is a great sport where the fans all sit together, and it's something with American sports I'm not aware of, like how fans integrate.
There's definitely separation between away fans and the home fans. But if I went to like some American soccer game and stood in the away stand and like cheered when the home team scored, I wouldn't really be worried about getting any abuse, or I wouldn't be worried about my like physical well-being. But if I did that in England, I would be a lot more worried about maybe getting hit or definitely verbal abuse.
Yeah, kick straight out as well.
Yeah.
If you started cheering in home fans in wrong section, and you didn't get verbal abuse or hit before, the stewards would be right up there. They have these stewards in high-vis coats that are going around trying to keep the peace. I mean, I don't know what they do most of the game, to be honest, but yeah, they'll come up and grab you and take you straight kicked out. That's it. No money back. You're a stupid one. Blah blah blah. So yeah, you got to be really careful. Even if you're a neutral, you got to be careful. It's almost like there's no neutral space, is there, in English football, which is pretty bad when you think about it. So yeah, what about like hick sports like NASCAR and stuff like?
Whoa. Yeah, I don't even know. Because the thing with like NASCAR, right? There's many different teams.
What if I went there and started cheering for like Formula One, Lewis Hamilton and stuff? NASCAR sucks.
Oh yeah. Actually, that was kind of interested whether, because I think people here don't really watch much Formula One. People in America don't really watch Formula One. They're pretty nailed in on their NASCAR and Indy 500.
Well, it's IndyCar, but yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, IndyCar. Actually, of which old Formula One driver Alonso now races in.
Yeah, I think he's coming back. Not next year, 2021. So definitely, I think the popularity spiked when he went to IndyCar in terms of Americans watching Formula One, going, "Who's this guy? He's pretty good. He's come from Formula One with a bit of backing. He's a world champion." And then they've gone, all right, we'll go and give that a try. There is a big backing in the US for Formula One, and it's now owned by Americans. And you can tell that they're starting to like offload a lot of the American cultural kind of methods to try and promote it. I think they're doing a decent job, to be honest. I mean, the guys before got it to a good position, but now he's taking it more to a world. It's bringing it to the 21st century, if you like. And
sorry to cut you off. I was going to ask, is there a F1 track in the US?
Yeah, there's one in Austin, and I think there's going to be a second one in Miami as well, a street circuit, maybe next year or the year after. But yeah, the one in Austin is like, it's like I had the privilege of going last year with a friend of mine, and his family put us up. Yeah, it was amazing. Just the whole weekend was amazing. The race was well organized as an event. The track is great because you can see everything. And talking about fans, you were with a load of Americans, and right, some of it, you'll come across one or two, comparing it to Britain, come across one or two who are really knowledgeable about Formula One, and you'll come across more that are like, well, listen, IndyCar. Wow, these cars go really fast. We got to a corner, and my friend went, it made me laugh. My friend went, oh, so this is like a slow 90-degree corner. I was like, we were waiting until they could run, and he was getting his camera ready with like this I don't know, slow shutter speed, and the car just went, and he was like open-mouthed, gobsmacked. I was like, okay, you really didn't know that was going to be a high-speed corner, and I was like there with a big grin on my face, like, so yeah, I mean, there's a difference in knowledge, you're right, in that sport, but I'm guessing I'm hopefully going to watch a basketball game soon in America, and I'll have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, man, there's so many different rules, but I haven't got basketball down yet. I'm yet to master the rules of that. But I think American football, I've pretty much got the rules down now for that.
Is that the most profitable sport in the world if you're a franchise owner?
I think so, because the Dallas Cowboys, the American football team, they bring in the most revenue, or they have the most net worth out of any sports club in the world. And I think if you look at the top 10 sports clubs, majority might be NFL teams, and then you got some soccer teams. I know Manchester United's up there as well. I just know the Dallas Cowboys are the wealthiest.
Ryan, you're spot on, because I just read the Dallas Cowboys franchise is valued at $5.5 billion. and the owner originally bought it for 140 million in 1989.
Whoa. And
Yeah.
because isn't there some saying there's some saying in England, if you want to lose money, if you want to make a bad investment, like buy like a soccer club, right? You're just
If you're a billionaire and you
automatically
want to
lose
become a
money.
millionaire, buy a football club. Buy a soccer
Yeah,
club.
that's the saying. Whereas in America, it's definitely more business of trying to appreciate like an asset. If you buy a basketball club or a football club, you expect it to kind of, grow 20-30% each year, and then eventually somewhere down the line sell it off for a profit. But I feel like in England with the soccer clubs, it's more of you buy it just because you love it, not that you're going to be able to like sell it for a profit in the future.
I mean, it's interesting because you have to always get your club finances or your team's finances spot on, otherwise you don't have a football team to run. I mean, I think it was Bury FC that recently had to close down as a club because they didn't have enough cash and they couldn't find a seller. Couldn't find a buyer for the club. And I was just thinking about this the other day. Should you be running a sports team as a business? Because if you do it that way, you can essentially get any profits back into the business. Or, like, as an owner, you might be compelled to say, well, actually, I own this club. I can decide what I want to do with the funds. They're going to go straight back into my wallet. And I think looking at the Newcastle Football Club, which is owned by Mike Ashley, there's a lot of conflict between the fans and the owner because it's a very big club, Newcastle FC. I think it's not as big as it once used to be, but it's still a very, very big club, especially up in Newcastle. And when you look at the amount of players that they brought in the past compared to other teams in the Premier League, it's like they're massively underspent. So it just made me think that as an owner, are you compelled to help the sports club, or can you run it as a business and decide whatever you want to do with the profits because you're the owner?
I think like that jumps off on a business tangent where in like today's world, it's beyond just making money. You've got like a social and community responsibility you must uphold through your actions as a business, whether it's reinvestment and training in like local people in the area or development of it through infrastructure. So I think Mike actually runs, he's a very shrewd businessman in how he runs, his different companies, where he turns stuff around or makes profits where other people didn't think was possible. But I think a football club, football clubs are set up by communities. They're set up by local people, whether it was, churches at the time or, gatherings of community members. So I think it's important to remember that as a football club grows, so should the community. And they should be investing straight back into that community, because at the end of the day, like the people who, like I support Liverpool. I love Liverpool, supported them my whole life. But I don't live, in the shadow of Anfield and in Liverpool itself. That's the community that the club needs to look after. And I support that. They must develop that area, keep those people in love with the club. So I think it's for me personally, I understand why the English clubs are run in such a way that, provided to do good for the community, it's not going to be as profitable as an American franchise, because their goals are different. But in saying that, I don't know how the franchises in America run, what their goals are, and what they try and like build.
I know if you kind of look at the like expense side on some of these American teams, they have like a salary limit or a salary cap that they can pay their players in the NFL, so they can't go above that. There's this article, and the problem is they pay the quarterbacks of the team like a huge chunk of the salary cap, maybe like 10 or 20%, because they're like the stars of the team. And sometimes some of the other people in the team are a bit like demotivated because they're getting paid like a tiny fraction of what the quarterback's getting paid. I don't know if it's partly down to like fair play, like policies, so one team can't attract all the best players. Do you know if they have these salary caps in in the UK for the soccer teams?
I don't think so, do they? No, like, is a short answer, because some people are on like 250k a week, which is, if it's capped, I mean, that's a silly cap, isn't it? I think with the NFL, looking at the NFL itself, take away the in-house fighting between the players, it actually works well. Like you said, it stops one team running away. Where it doesn't work is MLS, which is soccer, global sport. If you go to the World Cup, USA tend not to do that well. The best players will move to England. They'll move to where the money is. I think there was a famous player called Clint Dempsey. He made his mark in the Premier League and probably was the best striker out of the USA, but he didn't stay at the MLS. So if NFL went global, it'd have a problem. But because it's only in America, really, or the Americas, then there's no real issue. I don't know if anyone agrees with me on that. Like, they could try and sort out whether the quarterback's getting paid more than the linebackers or whatever, but it's not really going to have a massive effect on how the sport is viewed. If Barcelona suddenly said, right, we're limiting our budget to this much, couldn't afford the greatest players in the world, I'm sure, I don't know, Messi might be a different case, especially since he's been there all his life, but roll back 15 years and do that, I'm sure he would have moved on to a different club.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Lewis, because I guess considering how soccer teams recruit players and how the NFL, I think Major League is ML. What's the base? Is it MLB?
Yeah, it's MLB. Yeah.
So I think in terms of recruitment in football, so soccer, it's basically you pay to buy a player from another club if they're deemed good enough. Whereas I think recruitment in the NFL, it's you get the draft. Is it drafts, Ryan?
Yeah, there's a draft once a year. They draft like 250 players, something like this.
I think the draft is done, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, because you're the only US American sports specialist I know as of now. The picks are allocated to the teams on the basis of how bad they did last year. So if they did very, very poorly last year, they'd get the first pick.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they allocate them. I don't know if it's done that way. But you can like trade picks with like other teams. So say you had like the number 1 pick. You could trade the number 1 pick with maybe like the number 50 pick and the number 100 pick, so you could get like 2 more players instead of just like 1 great player.
Yeah. Actually, funny thing about that. So I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and recently we traded Jalen Ramsey to the LA Rams, and in return we got, I think, the first 2 picks that the LA Rams have for this upcoming season and the season after that. So it's quite interesting. It's basically like a money transaction, but actual cash, you're basically swapping recruitment options or recruitment picks. And if you've got an unhappy player, I think Jalen was an unhappy player at the Jaguars. You can basically get rid of an unhappy player, causing a bit of causing potential issues in the dressing room. For 2-3 brand new recruits who could be, the next best thing.
Does the player have any say in whether he's a pick or not?
They can decline to get picked in the draft, but then it's risky because if they decline that, they may not get picked further down the draft.
Yeah, and I think, I guess in a weird way, it's like you've reached that point where because if you think about how many players actually make it to the NFL draft and actually do get picked in whatever round, like to get picked as someone regardless of whether you're the first, second, or third pick. I guess most players would be happy that I'm in contention and I've signed for an NFL team. and basically 2-3 seasons of playing. After that, after my rookie year, and once I've settled in, I'm pretty much settled for life.
I do think it's weird. I don't know. There's something about a money transaction that just like crosses the I's and dots the... Oh, wait. Got that the wrong way around. Dots the I's and crosses the T's. Even though the money in football seems really big nowadays, if you look at the actual overall money spent by a club, it's not actually crazy. It's not as crazy as some of the price tags look. So, but just money, isn't it? Like, everyone understands money. I don't understand how you say this person is the best player, and then I'm gonna want him on my first pick. He's gonna be my top pick. That's got. Well, I do understand. I think that you'd probably have a massive scout team, especially in America. You've got to have basically scouts going to every game across the whole of the United States. What kind of operation is that? That's massive, isn't it?
So, Lewis, just going back on your point, has there been any instances where players have declined to go to a certain club? Eli Manning, who's the quarterback for the New York Giants. So the San Diego Chargers originally held the rights for the first overall pick in 2004 NFL draft because their record is 4-12, so they won 4 games, lost 12. Because Eli Manning was the most coveted player, the Chargers' intentions were to draft him first, but Manning stated publicly that he would refuse to play for the Chargers if drafted by him, but the Chargers selected him nonetheless, as the team had a deal in place with the New York Giants, whereby the Giants would draft and then trade 2 other players and a first-round pick. And then after that, the Chargers traded Manning to the New York Giants, and the Chargers got all these extra picks. And so it looks like you can decline, but it's a very risky game.
Yeah, I think if you're one of the best players, then you pretty much know where you're going to go because you've already got like a kind of non-legit deal or like a verbal agreement with the club struck up beforehand. But when you get further down the draft, you know, past like the 50 mark, and you're in the hundreds, then you have no idea where you're going.
I just remember that film Moneyball. A guy just walks in. He's a baseball player. He walks in and the manager says, "Right, you're off to da-da-da." It's like the other side of the USA or something. I'm like, what? Is that how it works? And yeah, that's kind of like what you're saying.
I think it's interesting because, well, it's actually quite sad as well, because if you look at the flip side, all these players that do make it, there's an even bigger pool of players that don't make it, and the amount of dedication and training and hopes that they put into getting drafted by an NFL team, and even if they do get drafted by the NFL team, there's no guarantee that they're going to be signed on because they might get cut, right? And yeah, no, it's quite sad because look at all these players basically don't have anything else other than football, and without football, then they might not pursue any other avenue in education. They just see football as the only thing that means that they're going to get out wherever they currently are.
I do think college sports are bigger in America than they are over here in the UK. Yeah. So like you say that these kids can't can't do anything without football. I mean, they could go to college and then hopefully they're doing well in whatever they were doing, and like if football doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but they've got like an education to fall back on. I thought that was the idea behind it. I'm guessing it doesn't work like that in practice. And even I didn't even know. Told you might be able to say something about this. When you're a youth in England, you're called a scholar. They call them like youth scholars. And I don't know if this is a new thing, but I don't think it is. But I didn't know this. It's not a big thing, but the club will take you on as a youth. If you're 14, 15, 16, 17, you're supposed to go to school and get certain grades, etc., to carry on playing for the youth team. So it's not unheard of in the United Kingdom, but it's definitely not shouted about as much as college football teams in America.
Yeah, it's a good point, Lewis. There's definitely in the UK for football, as the biggest sport. You'll have youth players come in from sometimes very young ages, 9, 10, 11, and they'll stay with the football club or be attached to it throughout, let's say, the next couple of years. But there's a requirement to do schooling as well on the side. And I think some clubs do impose you must pass this many GCSEs and you must achieve, certain levels of educational standard. But I don't think it's as highly enforced as what we always see in like the American films, where a kid can be dropped from the high school football team if he fails a certain class. I think it's in the UK there's a lot more focus on, from what my understanding was, but then this is maybe a few years out of date, sport first, education second. And so you stay with that professional club and you try, or as an amateur player, you're with a professional club and you try and get a professional contract in around probably the age of 18, 19 to turn pro. But that, of course, can happen earlier if you're a higher level talent, like, say, Raheem Sterling or someone who's turned pro at a very young age and been about now for a number of years. But yeah, I don't think education is as high on the agenda as it should be with sports, because I remember seeing a programme on Sky Sports where players a couple of divisions down were retraining as carpenters and plumbers because they'd missed out on having an education when pursuing a football career. So I think it's the collegiate system in America I really like, because if you can go to a good college, get a degree and an education in something while still pursuing your sporting career, God forbid it, but no one wants to inflict it upon someone, but bad injuries can take people out of sports at all levels and at all times. And if you're dropping out of a sport with no education, you're going to be in trouble in today's world. So I think the Americans do it well in that sense if you're moving on with an education.
Yeah, and it's also good to have the education after sport. I mean, like you said, injury, but also, sometimes people retire after 6, 7, 8 years. And if you're not one of those players who's getting paid the highest amount, then that amount of money that you earn in kind of that short playing time is not enough to extend over your whole life. So you need to definitely pick up some other skills and be able to work in a different industry if needed afterwards. But I mean, I know a lot of them they just go into coaching, right? Because that's what they know, coaching and commentating and stuff like this.
Oh, the old punditry, crazy.
Yeah.
Is it the same in the US, where like basically a recently retired player will just be punditing on whatever sport they're talking about? I mean, we've got some good pundits and some very suspicious pundits in the United Kingdom, I think. Especially for football, well, soccer. Some guys who played for the top teams back in their day, and just hand-wavingly dismiss teams that are lower down or whatever. I'm a supporter of a team that's a bit lower down, if you like, by recent times, but they've come up. They've done a good job in the English Premier League, and they're still, even though they're turning over big teams, they're still getting oh no, they'll get relegated. And people are starting to maybe actually think no, they won't. But it's taken quite a while for it to even start turning the tide. And it's these pundits that just say the mass. They don't. I don't know what they offer. I honestly don't know what they offer.
Some of these pundits, though, they come up with absolute gold. I love Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville.
Oh,
when
right.
They're going back and forth. It's quality to watch. This has been Maturing Cheddar, episode 12. Follow and subscribe. Join us next week for some more sport chat. Bye.